What will your loved ones really find when they open your drawers, closets, and garage after you're gone? Will it be laughter from old photos, or silent overwhelm from piles of things they don't know what to do with? Many older adults say, "I don't want to be a burden." But here's the reality. Without meaning to, so many leave behind confusion, chaos, and emotional weight for the next generation. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't realize how much had quietly built up over the years. See, it's not just the stuff, it's the decisions. Which china set was special? Which papers matter? Should this sweater be donated or kept as a memory? One woman we spoke to left behind a house full of unopened mail, dusty boxes labeled someday, and 5 identical toolkits. Her daughter spent 6 months sorting, donating, crying. Not because she was angry, but because every object felt like a puzzle piece with no picture to guide her. You might be thinking, "I've still got time." And you probably do. But decluttering isn't about death, it's about dignity. It's about choosing, while you still can, what matters most, and freeing yourself from the rest. If that hits home even a little, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. You deserve clarity now, and your family deserves peace later. Opal Dandridge was 78 when it finally hit her. She'd lived in the same red brick house in a sleepy corner of Michigan for over 4 decades. Her mind was still sharp, her independence intact. She drove herself to the grocery store, played bridge at the local rec center, and never missed her Sunday crossword. To everyone around her, Opal was thriving. But behind her closed garage door was another story. For 12 years, that garage had quietly filled with boxes, bags, furniture, knickknacks, tools, and stacks of things she promised herself she'd go through later. Later never came. There were Christmas decorations from the 80s, kitchen appliances she hadn't used since Bill, her late husband, was alive, and even unopened boxes from their last move in 1994. But Opal didn't see it as clutter. To her, it was just stuff, waiting for a little attention. One day, then one afternoon, her son Ellis stopped by. He didn't say much at first. He hugged her, fixed the squeaky cabinet under the sink, and they sat with coffee at the old kitchen table. Before leaving, he gently asked, "Mom, have you looked in the garage lately?" Opal chuckled. "Why?" "Something nesting in there." He hesitated, then said the one thing that shifted everything. "Mom, if something happened to you, what am I supposed to do with all that?" He didn't say it with judgment. No anger, just an honest, heavy question. Opal froze. It wasn't about the stuff anymore. It was about the message she'd be leaving behind, without meaning to. She realized she hadn't just been holding on to things. She'd been delaying decisions, avoiding hard feelings, tucking away her past, bit by bit, in boxes. And that thought, that her son might one day have to sort through her life with no map, no guidance, and no idea what mattered, kept her up that night. The next morning, she did something she hadn't done in years. She opened the garage door. Have you ever had a moment like that? A question, a comment, or even a memory that made you look at your space differently? Tell us in the comments. You're not alone. Many of us are one conversation away from clarity. Why do so many older adults hold on to things? Boxes of linens, drawers of mismatched cords, cabinets full of Tupperware with no lids. It's not because we're forgetful or stubborn. It's because science and life experience has shaped us to form deep emotional ties with our belongings. You see, as we age, our brain becomes more sensitive to meaning. That chipped teacup? It's not junk. It reminds you of mornings in your mother's kitchen. The faded baby blanket in the closet? Your child's first night home. These aren't just items. They're anchors to memories, identity, and love. There's a reason it feels wrong to toss certain things. It's not about the object, it's about what it represents. And that's completely normal. But here's the challenge. When everything becomes special, we stop being able to make decisions. That's called decision fatigue, and it's exhausting. Over time, the energy it takes to even think about decluttering becomes overwhelming. That's when the garage gets avoided. The closets stay closed. The boxes get stacked for later. Then there's the myth that keeps so many stuck. I might need this someday. You tell yourself, I'll use that bread maker again one day. Or, what if the grandkids want this furniture when they're older? But ask yourself honestly, how often do those somedays come? The truth is, we hold on out of fear. Fear of waste. Fear of regret. Sometimes even fear of facing the next chapter of life. And then there's guilt. Guilt for donating your mother's china. Guilt for tossing your late husband's jacket. Guilt for not treasuring everything. Grief and guilt are powerful forces. They whisper, if you let this go, you're letting go of the person. But here's something no one tells you. Letting go of the object doesn't erase the memory. It creates space for new moments, new clarity, and sometimes even healing. Opal, the woman we met earlier, said she felt like she was betraying her past when she threw out her late husband's dusty workshop tools. But once she did, she found something unexpected: relief. Not from the tools themselves, but from the pressure of what they represented. She realized she didn't need rusted screwdrivers to remember his kindness. What's one thing you've struggled to let go of? A letter? A sweater? A stack of old holiday cards? Type it in the comments below. It's powerful to name it. And remember, you're not getting rid of love. You're making room for peace. Opal stood in her garage on a crisp Saturday morning, a warm coffee in hand, staring at 40+ years of later. She knew she couldn't tackle it all at once. That would feel like saying goodbye to her entire life in one weekend. So she came up with a plan, simple, gentle, and effective. 3 boxes. That's it. One said keep. Only what she used, loved, or truly needed stayed. Not what she might need, but what actually brought her comfort or function. The second said bless. Items in good condition that could serve someone else. She started thinking, if I'm not using this, could someone else be grateful for it? That changed everything. Old baking pans went to a single mom down the street. A winter coat went to her church's clothing drive. It wasn't throwing away, it was passing along. The third box said release. Broken, expired, or long-forgotten things that had simply run their course. These weren't failures. They were just finished. Some were recycled, others discarded. And every time she placed something in that box, it felt like she was exhaling. Opal made just one decision per item. No jumping ahead. No reopening the same box 3 days later. She promised herself, one touch, one choice. It kept her from spiraling into overthinking or emotional quicksand. She didn't do it for hours at a time either. Just 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's it. She played her favorite Patsy Cline album, lit a lavender candle, and made it a ritual, not a chore. What surprised her wasn't how fast the garage cleared out. It was how light she began to feel. She said, each time I let something go, I felt like I was making space, not just in my house, but in my heart. Within 30 days, she could finally park her car inside. Within 60, she'd reclaimed the guest bedroom that had become a storage unit. And within 90, she started sleeping better, feeling more energized, and even invited friends over for the first time in years. The boxes helped, yes, but it was the mindset shift that mattered most. Could you try this today, just 10 items? Not the attic, not the whole basement. Just 10 things, one by one, with no guilt. Tell us in the comments if you're up for it. Your courage might just inspire someone else to begin. At first, Opal thought she was just organizing. But within 2 weeks of clearing out her guest room closet, something strange started happening. She began sleeping through the night for the first time in years. No more waking up at 2 a.m. to toss and turn. No more feeling wired but exhausted. And one morning, as she stood at the kitchen sink, humming to herself while sunlight poured in, she realized something else. She felt lighter. Not just physically, emotionally. So what changed? Here's the truth most people never consider. Clutter isn't just stuff. It's a kind of silent noise. A constant, low hum of unfinished business. Every pile of paper whispers, you haven't dealt with this yet. Every bag of clothes says, you should have done this weeks ago. Every cluttered corner quietly nags. Why can't you get it together? And your brain hears it all. Studies from Princeton and UCLA have shown that visual clutter overwhelms the brain's processing power. It spikes cortisol, the stress hormone, and when that happens regularly, it affects everything from memory and focus to sleep quality. For seniors, high cortisol isn't just stressful, it's dangerous. It can worsen inflammation, slow healing, increase confusion, and yes, make falling asleep and staying asleep much harder. But Opal didn't know any of that when she started. She just knew that every time she cleared a shelf or let go of a dusty old box, her chest felt less tight. Her mood lifted. Her laughter came easier. One afternoon, she opened the linen closet and smiled. Really smiled, because for the first time in years, it looked peaceful. No more leaning towers of mismatched sheets. No mystery bins. Just clean shelves, folded towels, and room to breathe. And that peace followed her to bed. She began waking up before her alarm, rested. Her mind felt sharper. She had the energy to walk longer, socialize more, and even bake again. She called it her emotional detox. Letting go of the physical weight had cleared out years of mental heaviness she hadn't even known she was carrying. One day, her friend Lorena came over and said, "Opal, you look 10 years younger." Opal just laughed and replied, "Turns out peace of mind doesn't come from buying something new. It comes from letting go." Have you ever noticed how your environment affects your state of mind? Maybe a messy drawer that stresses you out, or a clean space that makes you breathe easier. Share your experience in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it. And stay tuned, because the next thing Opal did shocked even her doctor. Opal used to imagine her family going through her belongings after she was gone. Tired, overwhelmed, unsure of what to keep, and quietly arguing over what mattered most. That thought haunted her. So instead of waiting, she did something different, something most seniors never think to do. She invited her grandchildren over now, not for a visit, but for a journey through her memories. It started with tea and cookies at the kitchen table. Opal pulled out a small wooden jewelry box, the kind with the velvet lining and the little gold latch, and said, "I want you to choose something today, not someday." At first, they hesitated. "Grandma, that's for later," her youngest grandson said. But she smiled and replied, "If I wait too long, who gets to hear the stories behind these things?" That broke the ice. One by one, they explored her treasures, her favorite apron from Sunday dinners, the brooch she wore to her first dance, a stack of postcards from a cross-country trip she took at 22. Each item came with a story, and each story sparked laughter, tears, and connection. They weren't dividing possessions. They were sharing history. Her granddaughter took home a set of teacups that had belonged to Opal's mother. Her grandson chose a pocket knife Opal had given to his father years ago. Even the youngest great-grandchild picked a worn but beloved teddy bear that had sat on her shelf for decades. And what Opal noticed? Something remarkable. The fear she'd carried for years, that she'd be forgotten or reduced to stuff, melted away. Because now, her family knew the meaning behind the items. They didn't just inherit things, they inherited memories. It turned decluttering into a celebration of life. A way to say, "This is who I am, and I want you to carry it forward." It also made her family feel included, not burdened. There was no guessing later, no fights about what to keep or toss. Just gratitude for having shared it together. She said later, "I thought letting go meant I was preparing to leave. But what I didn't expect was how much more present it made me feel." It's a powerful shift, decluttering with your loved ones instead of for them. It creates space, not just in your home, but in your relationships. Who would you invite into this experience? Maybe it's your daughter, your nephew, your neighbor's kids, or a dear friend you've known since high school. Whoever it is, consider starting that conversation now. Tell us in the comments. Who would you want to share your stories with? Opal didn't start with the attic, the garage, or the emotional boxes filled with decades of family photos. She started with a hallway drawer. 1 drawer, 10 items. That's it. The secret to her success wasn't just in how she decluttered. It was in what she chose to let go of first. Not the heavy, heart-wrenching things, but the obvious clutter she'd walked past 100 times. Here's the list she scribbled on a yellow notepad, titled, 10 Things I Wish I'd Tossed Sooner. 1. Stacks of old paperwork from insurance plans, outdated warranties, and bank statements from the 1980s. She realized, if it hasn't been touched in 20 years, it's not helping, only hiding. 2. Expired medications she no longer used. She was stunned at the dates. Some bottles were over 12 years old. Dangerous to keep, and quietly adding chaos to her cabinet. 3. Gadgets that didn't work. An old blender, a broken lamp, and a CD player she'd fix one day. That day never came. Letting them go created both space and relief. 4. Clothes that didn't fit. Some still had tags. Others were wishful sizes or styles she hadn't worn in decades. Keeping them didn't motivate her. It silently reminded her of who she used to be. 5. Furniture no one used. There was an end table blocking the hallway, a chair stacked with magazines, a sideboard collecting dust. She gave away 3 pieces, and her home felt 10 years younger. 6. Old linens. She had 19 mismatched pillowcases, threadbare towels from the 70s, and enough tablecloths for a banquet she'd never host. A few good sets stayed. The rest? Gone. 7. Greeting cards from people she couldn't remember. She realized, if the message didn't still move her, it was okay to let it go. 8. Duplicate kitchen tools. 3 can openers, for spatulas, 2 food processors. Her motto became, 1 good one is enough. 9. Books she'd never read again. She donated a full shelf and kept only her favorites, the ones that still sparked joy. 10. Guilt gifts. That vase from a cousin she never liked. A painting she never hung. Trinkets she never chose but felt bad getting rid of. She let them go and said, "That's not selfish. That's self-respect." And the most surprising thing? She let go of an entire storage unit she'd been renting for 8 years. Her son had no idea she'd still been paying for it. $110 a month to house boxes of things she hadn't looked at since 2002. They emptied it in a weekend. Most of it went to donation. What stayed came home and got a real place. Or a real goodbye. That final move, it brought her the biggest relief. She looked her son in the eyes and said, "I'm not leaving you a mess. I'm giving you peace." Which one of these things do you still have at home? Is there something on Opal's list that you know it's time to release? Let us know in the comments. It might just be your first step. Under the dim light of her garage, Opal stood before the one box she had avoided the entire 30-day journey. A dusty container with a green lid and a faded label. Dale, Fishing. It had sat there, untouched, for over 20 years. Inside were her late husband's fishing reels, hooks, bobbers, and a worn leather tackle box with his initials scratched into the side. She ran her hand over the lid, remembering the way he'd whistle on Sunday mornings before their lake trips. It wasn't just gear, it was him. Or at least, it felt that way. But that afternoon, something shifted. She didn't open the box right away. Instead, she sat on a folding chair and talked to him out loud. "I miss you, Dale. I always will. But you're not in this plastic box. You're in the story I tell our grandkids about the time you caught that catfish with a donut. You're in the way I still cook trout the way you taught me." And for the first time in 2 decades, she wasn't crying from grief. She was smiling through the tears. Because she understood, clinging to the items was keeping her in pause. And Dale wouldn't have wanted that. He was never one to sit still. So, she made a decision. She picked 3 things. His lucky fishing hat, the tackle box with his initials, and a photo of them at the lake, framed in wood he carved himself. Those she kept. The rest, she gave to a local youth fishing club, hoping a new generation would find the joy Dale once did. As she handed it over, the young boy who accepted it said, "My grandpa used to fish too." Opal just smiled. Mine did too. That moment, that was the release. Not of grief, but of the weight of postponing peace. She didn't feel like she was letting go of Dale. She felt like she was letting go with him. It didn't erase the memories. It highlighted them. She went home that evening, brewed a cup of tea, and for the first time in years, slept without the pull of the past anchoring her spirit. What about you? Is there something you've been holding on to, not because it brings you joy, but because you're afraid to let it go? An item that feels like a person, a time, a piece of yourself? You don't have to throw everything away. Just ask, what truly honors the memory? The stuff or the stories I carry forward? We'd love to hear from you. What item are you ready to release? Not out of guilt, but out of love and peace. Leave a comment. Your story might inspire someone else to finally feel free. Today, Opal's home tells a new story, not through piles of things stuffed in corners or boxes stacked to the ceiling, but through open shelves, warm lighting, and items chosen with care. When you walk in, you feel something different. There's a sense of calm, of welcome, of intention. Her living room now has a cozy reading chair by the window, the one she always wanted to use but never could, because it was buried under things she might get to someday. Now, she sits there every morning with a crossword and a cup of chamomile tea. The kitchen, once cluttered with unused appliances and dusty cookbooks, it's now bright and breezy. She kept her favorites, like the lemon zester Dale always teased her about, and passed the rest on to a local women's shelter. Even her bedroom has changed. With clear nightstands and soft linens, it became her sanctuary. She sleeps better. She breathes better. She feels lighter, not just in her body, but in her heart. Her son, Micah, used to worry. He didn't want to say it out loud, but the anxiety was there. What are we going to do with all this if something happens to Mom? But now, he doesn't have to ask that question anymore, because what she'll leave behind isn't a mess or confusion. It's peace. And the best part? Her grandchildren feel it too. When they visit, they're not afraid to touch things or play or sprawl on the floor. They help her water her plants and look through the photo albums she carefully labeled, albums she once thought she'd get around to someday. That's the gift Opal left behind. Not boxes or burdens, but memories that are easy to find and stories that are ready to be shared. And she didn't have to be perfect or minimalist to do it. She just had to be intentional, to say, I love my family enough not to leave them guessing. And even more powerfully, I love myself enough to live with clarity now, not later. That's the power of decluttering done right. It's not about stuff. It's about freedom. If this resonated with you, if it made you think of your own home or your own legacy, please take a moment. Hit that like button. Share this with someone you care about. And subscribe to Better Aging Advice, because we're here to help you age with grace, with strength, and with purpose. Your home is your story, and it's never too late to rewrite the ending.